If you've been monitoring any social media over the past 10 days, you would have been exposed to any number of thoughts and theories about what happened to Flight 370. We've been covering this story heavily, but on social media, it has taken on a life of its own. Platforms around the world have allowed many an avenue to comment, but they've also blurred the line between what is fact and what is fiction. Well, to explore this, let us take you over to Tom Donkin, who is in the World's newsroom for us now. Tom.
Yeah, John, well, a big part of journalism, as you know, is to report the facts. But what happens when there are no facts? And we're seeing that right now with this story. And because there's so many Chinese people on board missing on this plane, it's played out hugely in Chinese social media. You can see here the BBC Chinese Service's Facebook page, and I want to introduce you to Xin Li, who looks after that. And Xin, you'll not just be looking at this page, but also Chinese social media in general. And you mentioned to me earlier that there's a debate at the moment about some criticism towards the Chinese media and how they're covering it. Just explain that to us.
Yeah, for the past 10 days, it's been all over Chinese media, including social media, with tens of millions of viewers watching it. And lately, there are criticisms by Chinese media professionals and also scholars on Chinese media's reports. They're asking why it's the Western media taking the lead all the time instead of the Chinese media.
And the threat of a hunger strike by the Chinese relatives, how's that going down on Chinese social media?
Yeah, there are also a lot of discussions in all the social media forums about this. People have a lot of sympathy over these relatives, but also some are calling them not to overreact because the investigation is still going on.
But of course, John, it's not just Chinese social media that is playing out. Of course, across the world, there's huge fascination. And Sam Barry's with us, as always, to talk about that. And Sam, just cast your mind back 10 days, if you like, when this story broke. We've got a little graph here of explaining just how big it was then, but just explain what this is showing us as the week progressed.
So the appetite for this story has been huge. What you're looking at here is the equivalent of 3 million tweets on using just the hashtag MH370. There have been many related hashtags, but this has been the main one. And this is 3 million tweets. The first spike where nearly 1 million people were tweeting was when the story first broke. The plane is missing, officials came out, and that's when people spread the story. The second consistent spike was on Saturday when the Malaysian Prime Minister came out and said it was a deliberate action by somebody on the plane to turn off the communication systems, and that's the second spike that we see there.
This is the one we can see here, right?
Yeah, that's that one there, but it's consistent throughout the whole week. I've never seen a story like this with a global appetite on social media.
I remember this story from the time, 10 days ago, when you posted this. You can see down here, probably not for the viewers, but more than 1.5 million people have looked at this
so
story.
This is the reach of this story, which is huge for a reach of our story on our Facebook page. People are commenting, sharing, and we're doing maybe 2 or 3 posts on the Malaysian flight a day, and the appetite there just keeps they're wanting more all the time.
But is it just the data that we're talking about here, or is it more away from the story, theories? We posted this today, and this got a bit of traffic, didn't it?
See, already, I think 1,500 people have shared, and this is the type of stuff that's really driving the social media conversation, because you don't have many facts around, and so the theories of what's happened in the case is what people is driving all of the social media chatter about this story.
Xin, Sam, thanks very much. And John, we've had some good guesses, a lot of conspiracies, but one thing we do know is that Flight 370 is somewhere, and that's one fact that'll keep this story very high in our bulletins for a few more days yet.
Yeah, it is absolutely wild, isn't it, in social media land at the moment. Tom, thanks very much indeed for that.